President Trump slamming the Federal Reserve ahead of Jerome Powell's speech at the Fed's annual Jackson Hole event, tweeting, "Our economy is very strong despite the horrendous lack of vision by Jay Powell and the Fed. But the Democrats are trying to will the economy to be bad for purposes of the 2020 election. Very selfish. Our dollar is so strong that it is sadly hurting other parts of the world. The Fed rate over a fairly short period of time should be reduced by at least 100 basis points, with perhaps some quantitative easing as well. If that happens, our economy would be even better, and the world economy would be greatly and quickly enhanced. Good for everyone." On that, I want to bring in National Taxpayer Union Vice President Brandon Arnold. All right, Brandon, I think everyone believes the Fed will cut rates on Friday. What I'm concerned about is messaging. It feels like, of course, the last time the Fed got together and Jay Powell cut rates, he was embarrassed by it. He worked very hard to suggest that was it, one and no more. So where are we now this time?
Well, I think you're right. There probably will be a rate reduction. And I think the problem that Chairman Powell is having is the real cause of this problem is related to our uncertain trade relationships. So he's being asked to paper over some very, very serious problems that are only going to be addressed in a fundamental way by fixing our trade relationships across the globe. There's only so much that our Fed can do. There's only so much that's being done in other countries with their central banks taking action. At the end of the day, the buck stops here. We need to fix our trade relationships quickly.
Well, one thing we do see is a money from all over the world pouring into America, pouring into our treasuries. One of the reasons perhaps that we had that inverted yield curve, but also keeping the dollar robust. How concerned should the Fed be about the role of the U.S. dollar with the sort of the differences, the major differences in our economy and most of the rounds around the world?
Well, a strong dollar is a double-edged sword. It helps certain folks. It helps people who are importing a lot of goods, certainly. If you're exporting, then certainly it hurts your business. It makes it more difficult to access foreign markets. But that shouldn't be the primary concern of policymakers. What policymakers should be concerned about is creating a level playing field, allowing our businesses to compete across the globe very successfully, as we can do, as long as we don't have an arm tied behind our back. Right now, we have an arm tied behind our back because we have uncertain trading relationships. We do not have a deal with China. We need to lock in some sort of arrangement with China. That'll stabilize not only the United States economy, but global economies all across the world.
The Fed has talked a little bit this year about deflation. Last week, we had two major regional Fed reports that show prices paid continue to. I'm saying they're in a deflationary death spiral. I'm not sure how that happened when those kind of costs were, I was told, were going to go up with the trade war. Nevertheless, how important is it that the Fed get ahead of this drifting inflation situation? Because admittedly, if it starts to become deflation, it's going to be a lot more difficult to arrest it.
Yeah, it's interesting because prices have fallen in categories that were not tariffed, and products that have actually faced tariffs have increased in price. So we have kind of multiple things happening under the surface here. Should that be a big concern of the Fed? Yes, but there's only so much they can do there. I still think the fundamental problem, and I'm sorry for beating a dead horse here, the fundamental problem is our trading relationships. Those need to be addressed, and that'll take care of a lot of the issues that right now the Fed is being confronted with, largely because of a failure to address the bigger, more prominent issues.
Well, I tell you what, then the Fed better figure it out, because I don't think the trading thing is going to be resolved anytime quickly. I think we'll get some small, marginal, bite-sized victories, if you will, that will appease the stock market. But the Fed is going to have to find a way to crunch in some of this data, because we're so much different than the rest of the world, and a lot of people beyond the president are complaining. Brandon, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.